having a big brother like makes a huge like impact on just like, there's so many bands that he was listening to that I would hear and be like, ugh, I hate this. And then like, you know, at whatever point, just eventually I'm like, wait a minute, I love this, you know? And like, I feel like that is somehow like weirdly like deep, like you, because a lot of times like your favorite music, and I don't know, a lot of people don't have this experience. I think there's a lot of things like disliking something at first and then loving it is like, you have to like almost like understand something that you don't naturally understand. I think there's something like really cool about that. Like, so yeah, I don't know, like at the time it was like Nirvana, Rage Against the Machine, were the new things, and all the kind of like Southern California punk bands, and then like the next wave of that I would say was like The Clash, or like bands that were like, wait, this isn't really punk, it's more like rock and roll and more soulful and R&B and all this stuff. That like, that I think was a big moment. Velvet Undergrounds, and then like from there going more to the like later stuff, the Bob Dylans to Nina Simone's and all that like good stuff. Yeah, I think later, yeah, for sure. But he's still always up on a lot of stuff. Like, it's funny now because when I'll talk to him about music, like there'll be certain new bands that I might have some like more like personal experience with, or know like something about that makes me not like them or like them or whatever, and I'll be like, well, you know, those guys are da 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 da, and he'll be like, well, I don't know all that stuff, and I'm like, yeah, you're right, you don't. My like experience can kind of taint the you know, the like the simple appreciation that like I go back to his like mindset a lot, because I'm like, oh yeah, I don't need to bring all the baggage of whatever other bands have told me about that band or this, you know. So it's nice to like be taken back to that sort of like fan without also being a musician, like appreciation. Three artists that are just playing for me and a select group of my friends. Frank Ocean definitely is on the top of there. You know, the Walkmen were always the biggest deal in the world to us, and they're maybe kind of broken up now, definitely broken up now, I guess. So they could reunite for this small party. Who's the other one? I gotta think about the third one. It's gotta be a good one. Favorite Minnesota memory? There's been a lot of good ones. I'm a huge fan of Krista Tippett. Has a podcast now, used to have her show out of the NPR office like 10 years ago or something. Was the first time that we were here, and I got to meet her, and it was like a huge deal to me, because someone who like is so like smart and like, I don't know, in a world that's also, it's always that context of where like when a podcast was brand new, it was one of the only podcasts I knew about, hers, and she just had such a wide variety of guests that were like poets to musicians to philosophers to whoever. Yeah, so she seemed very otherworldly at a time, like not just academic or not just like a media person, but something more than that. And so like, yeah, meeting her was a big deal in Minnesota. I think like badges and t-shirts I put in the same category a little bit. This is a hieroglyphics t-shirt I picked up on tour. Got a good fade to it. That's a good one. I just bought a new Cure shirt that was from the Wish tour from '92 that I love the design. It's like crazy. Those are just fun like things to do when you're sitting backstage and you're like, it's better than being on Instagram or something. I like that a cold weather tent, you know, like we're from Southern California, so it's always warm and you always kind of feel like I should be doing, you know, I should be doing something. Like being forced to kind of not do anything or not having an option of doing anything. It's nice to just sit and like, I feel much better about reading a book if I'm just sitting there. On tour, if it's really nice out, I don't feel great about doing that. I'm reading a book right now. There's a author, Lucia Berlin. Her second collection of books or short stories just came out. The first one is called A Manual for Cleaning Women. It's one of the best books I've ever read, and it's so good, and it got a bunch of attention a few years ago, but she was kind of like not super well known during her lifetime, and like strongly recommend. Who in the group could do stand-up? Good. Well, our guitar player David, I think is by far the funniest person. He's the kind of like he has no filter, and he'll just say things, and that he doesn't. It's not like he's trying to think of a funny joke. It just comes out. There's a lot of those actually, because the more time that passes, the more we are so similar and become like one person. Like somebody gets a pair. There's these Levi's that were called Levi's 501 CT, which means the leg was tapered, and they discontinued them a few years ago. So we're all like, we need our like Levi's CT Pro model. Bring it back for us. I don't know. It's something we could work on. I'm passionate about reading and literature, film. I'm also like, I just read 2 great books on soccer. One of them is called Among the Thugs. Another one is called How Soccer Explains the World, An Unlikely Theory of Globalization by Franklin Foer. That book was amazing, but just like, it's so different for us Americans. We don't identify through soccer. You know, a lot of people identify through American football and everything. I love, I don't know, the South American, the European, all these teams. It's just a totally different story of the world and how politics and globalization, all these things work, and that book's amazing. A long time, actually. This one we recorded probably like way back before the first New Age Norms came out, so probably recorded it in like October. It was a long time coming, but it's really fun. It's fun to do that. It's fun to make a whole record and then do these performances that require a whole new arrangement with the keys and background singers and everything. Like, these ones came out really cool. And this George Michael Freedom cover is like one of my favorite things we've done. Like, it's just like funky. We were kind of talking about doing different covers, and we're in the studio the day of, just being like throwing stuff around, and we were talking about kind of different influences of very British 90s, Manchester-y club kinds of things, from Primal Scream, Happy Mondays, New Order types of stuff, but more dancey Stone Roses. And then we realized, we threw around the idea of a couple of those bands or those artists doing one of their songs, and then somehow that George Michael song came up, and we realized this is the exact same idea in terms of production, the sounds of the pianos, the sound of the bongos, this sort of dance rock and roll thing that was a hit song. We're like, this is rad, because everybody, we're old, so we know this, but a lot of people would have never heard this song, so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if people dig it. What do I wish someone told me in 2004 when the band started that I know now? It's so strange, because I think in the early days, you're just trying to keep it all together. And also, I realized, as probably every musician does, that this thing of being able to tour and record and write music and be on this endless loop, it's like an all-consuming job that is, when it's good, it's the best thing ever. When you're playing great shows and you're able to write music and sometimes even play it that night and operate, but you're juggling so much. You have a label, you have a crew, you have keeping everybody happy and involved and excited. It's a crazy thing, and I think I got, very anxious and stressed about that and was trying to please people. So I guess that's the moral of the story. You got to keep it all together. You got to please people, but also you can't keep everybody happy. So just make sure that you love what you're doing, and sometimes that doesn't mean everybody else is going to be happy, but you got to do that.